The sunrise over Kijani village had never looked like this before. Golden light stretched across the savannah, touching rooftops made of clay and straw, as if blessing every household individually. Dew shimmered across farmland like scattered diamonds, and birds circled above the transformed baobab tree, their songs echoing with unusual harmony. But something deeper had changed. The village did not wake with routine chatter, it woke with silence. Not fearful silence, reverent silence. Villagers stepped outside their huts slowly, as though afraid that speaking too loudly might disturb something sacred now resting among them. In the center of the ceremonial ground stood Danjuma, still, watching the baobab. He had not slept since the ritual ended. Inside him, memories moved like rivers beneath calm earth. Every ancestral voice, every forgotten joy, every buried regret now lived within his consciousness, whispering softly without overwhelming him. He had not simply saved the village, he had become its living archive. By mid-morning, the entire village gathered beneath the transformed baobab. The chiefs, elders, farmers, healers, hunters, and children formed a massive circle around Danjuma. Elder Cato approached slowly, leaning on his staff with visible humility rather than authority. For centuries, Cato began, leadership in Kijani has been passed through bloodlines and age. He paused, turning toward Danjuma. Today, wisdom chooses differently. The chief removed his ceremonial bead necklace and placed it gently at the roots of the baobab. We appoint a new role in Kijani, he declared. Not a ruler, but a reminder. The crowd murmured softly. Cato raised his voice. Danjuma Ayuba, from this day forward, you are declared the last memory keeper. The title echoed across the ceremonial ground like a prophecy finally fulfilled. Danjuma bowed deeply, though his expression carried solemn weight rather than pride. Memory is not power, he said quietly. It is responsibility. Later that afternoon, Danjuma sat beside Mama Zuri outside her hut. The old woman stirred herbal tea over a small fire, her hands moving slower than usual. You carry more voices than any human should, she said gently. Danjuma stared into the fire. Sometimes I feel them grieving inside me, he admitted. Mama Zuri nodded knowingly. Memory does not exist to remove pain. It exists to prevent pain from repeating. She handed him the ivory pendant once owned by his great-grandfather. Every memory keeper must pass knowledge forward, or memory becomes another form of imprisonment. Danjuma studied the pendant carefully. For the first time, he noticed tiny carvings representing generations of keepers before him. But I am the last, he whispered. Mama Zuri smiled faintly. No, child, you are the bridge between the last and the first. Over the following weeks, Kijani village transformed into a place of living remembrance. Danjuma began organizing storytelling gatherings every sunset beneath the baobab. Elders shared stories they once feared revealing. Children learned ancestral songs previously lost to time. Families began tracing their bloodlines, discovering forgotten alliances and old rivalries that were now addressed openly rather than buried. The village established a new tradition called the Night of Open Histories, where every household shared both proud achievements and ancestral mistakes. Healing spread through confession. Unity grew through vulnerability. Despite the peace returning to Kijani, one memory continued echoing inside Danjuma's mind louder than the others. The river guardians, the tribe betrayed centuries ago. One evening, He approached the council. "We must search for their descendants," he said. Silence followed. Travel beyond familiar lands carried danger, but refusing the journey meant leaving ancestral healing unfinished. Elder Cato nodded slowly. "Some wounds do not close until walked toward," he agreed. And so, Danjuma assembled a small delegation including Baba Rengo, the ceremonial drummer, a young healer named Sadia, 2 skilled hunters, and Mama Zuri's grandson, Musa, eager to witness history unfold. Their journey east led them into dense forests where roots grew above ground like ancient serpents frozen mid-motion. The air carried whispers of forgotten rituals, and travelers spoke cautiously, as if loud voices might awaken spirits guarding the land. On the 3rd night, Danjuma touched a sacred stone formation and felt a sudden flood of unfamiliar memories. Children running beside riverbanks, women weaving baskets with water reed fibers, warriors wearing tattoos shaped like flowing streams. "They passed through here," he whispered. The river guardians had left footprints across time. After weeks of travel, they arrived at a hidden valley surrounded by mist-covered waterfalls. There they discovered a small but thriving community known as the People of Flowing Blood. Their cultural markings, their river-based rituals, their lullabies, all confirmed what Danjuma already felt in his spirit. These were descendants of the river guardians. Their leader, an elderly woman named Nahara, listened silently as Danjuma explained Kijani's ancestral betrayal. The valley fell silent as her people gathered behind her. Finally, she spoke. "Our ancestors warned us the valley would one day call us back to unfinished history." Danjuma knelt. "We cannot undo what was done, but we ask permission to carry your memory alongside ours, honestly." Nahara studied him carefully. "Forgiveness is not given because someone asks," she said. "It is given when someone proves they can carry the truth without rewriting it." She presented Danjuma with a ceremonial bowl carved from river stone. "Drink from our river," she instructed, "but know this: whoever drinks becomes responsible for protecting both our histories equally." Without hesitation, Danjuma drank. The water burned like fire and froze like ice simultaneously as ancestral memories from the river guardians merged with those he already carried. Nahara smiled softly. "The valley accepts your burden," she declared. Months later, Kijani village hosted the largest gathering in its history. The descendants of the river guardians arrived as honored guests rather than forgotten victims. Together, both communities planted new baobab saplings around the ceremonial grounds, symbolizing shared guardianship of history. Children from both tribes performed dances combining their cultural traditions. Elders exchanged sacred knowledge openly. For the first time in centuries, history felt whole. That evening, Mama Zuri sat beside the baobab, watching children play ancestral games restored through Danjuma's teachings. Her breathing had grown shallow over recent weeks, though she never complained. Danjuma sat beside her quietly. "You have done well, child," she whispered. "I only continued what you began," he replied gently. Mama Zuri smiled faintly. "No, I only guarded memory. You became it." As the sun dipped below the horizon, she closed her eyes peacefully. The wind rustled the baobab leaves, singing lullabies only memory keepers could hear. Mama Zuri joined the ancestors. Years passed. Danjuma aged into a respected elder whose presence commanded calm rather than authority. The baobab grew taller, its golden bark glowing brighter each season. Under his guidance, Kijani village transformed into a cultural sanctuary where travelers from distant lands came to learn forgotten traditions and reconciliation rituals. Storytelling schools were built. Memory ceremonies became seasonal festivals. Children were taught not only how to celebrate victories, but how to document mistakes. One evening, while overseeing storytelling practice, Danjuma noticed a young girl standing silently at the edge of the ceremonial ground. She stared at the baobab with the same curious intensity he once carried as a boy. "What do you hear?" he asked gently. The girl hesitated. "I hear songs coming from the roots," she whispered. Danjuma smiled knowingly. The cycle had begun again. As Danjuma aged further, he gathered the village one final time beneath the baobab. "Memory is not meant to live inside one person forever," he announced. He handed the ivory pendant to the young girl. "You will not carry memory alone," he told her. "You will teach others to carry it together." He turned toward the baobab and placed his hand against its glowing bark, whispering a final prayer in the oldest dialect known to Kijani. Years after Danjuma joined the ancestors, travelers passing through Kijani village often reported something unusual. At night, when moonlight touched the baobab leaves, they swore they could hear thousands of faint voices singing lullabies and storytelling chants. Villagers simply smiled when asked about it, because in Kijani, memory was no longer feared, it was celebrated. And so, the legend of Kijani village teaches a truth older than kingdoms and deeper than rivers, that progress without memory creates empty futures, that forgiveness requires courage greater than war, and that every community, like every human heart, is built from stories worth remembering. Because the soil beneath our feet does not forget. It listens, it waits, and when the time is right, it reminds.